Alright, so this is my chain burn deck. As you can see, I use balance of judgment. If your opponent controls more cards than the total number of cards in your hand and your side of the field combined, draw cards equal to the current card deficient, the difference. So for those who might not understand, what that means is if you have like 3 cards on your side of the field, 2 cards in your hand, that's 5 cards in total you have. You have to compare that to what they have on their side of the field. You don't count the cards in their hands. So it doesn't matter how many cards they got in their hands. What matters is how many cards they have on the field. So if they have 6 cards on their side of the field, for example, and you got 3 cards on your side of the field and 2 cards in hand, you have 5 cards you own, 5 cards you have. They control only 6 cards on their side of the field. Even if they had like 30 cards in their hands, they only control 6 cards on their side of the field. So you're comparing the cards on your field in your hand to what they have on their side of the field, and the difference. And the difference in this scenario will be like 1 card. So you'll draw 1 card. You want to be in a scenario where you have a lot less cards collectively. Typically, you'll set in this deck. Of course, you'll set a lot of cards. You'll play a lot of cards, so you'll probably end up with just balance of judgment on the field by itself. And let's say your opponent has 7 cards on the field. You activate this, you'll draw 6, because that's the difference. So that's what makes this card really, really awesome, because you could potentially draw 6 or more cards depending on how many cards your opponent has. Let's say he has 5 cards in his back row, 5 monsters on his side of the field, and 1 card on each of his pendulum scale. That right there is 12 cards. You activate this by itself. You have no cards in your hand, nothing on your side of the field except for this card. The difference between this, the fact that you have this card and the number of cards he has 12, you have 1, so minus 1 from that, it's 11. So you'll draw 11 cards. So you could potentially draw 11 cards off of 1 judgment scale. Plus you can only activate 1 per turn, so you can't stack these with with 2 copies. You can only use 1 at a time. I have 3 reckless greeds, of course. You're pretty much guaranteed 2 cards from activating these, and they do they do stack. So you can play multiple of these in a single turn, draw a lot of cards. Card D, obviously you summon it, you send it, you tribute, send it to the graveyard to draw 2 cards and your turn. So what you want to do is obviously set your back row first, your traps, and then summon card D, and then draw 2 and your turn. So there's one of your drawing engines, right? Reckless Greed is your other one, Judgment Scales is your other one, and it's your big draw, because you'll waste up a lot of cards deliberately just to try to get this to draw you a lot of cards. Battle Fader, obviously to protect you from attacks, from OTKs, Pendulum. Your opponent summons a whole bunch of monsters through Pendulum, something attacks you. You want to survive, so that's what Battle Fader's for, right? Swift Scarecrow, relatively the same thing, to protect you from getting OTK'd and whatnot. Then we got Just Desserts, especially if they pendulum summon like 5 monsters. 1 just dessert will deal them 2,500 points of damage. Typically you want to deal at least 2,000 with this card, at least, because every card you play that has burn effect, you want to at least deal 2,000 with it. So Just Desserts you want to at least deal 2,000 with. Marshmallow, as you can see, will deal 1,000 if they attack it while face down. It can't dodge all battle, so it's useful, especially if your opponent has a whole bunch of monsters. You can survive using that. So there's obviously defense, plus it could burn. Barrel, Secret Barrel. Obviously you can, if your opponent's drawing a lot of cards, plussing a lot of cards, obviously you can take advantage of that and deal them a lot of damage. A lot of times I've dealt like 3200 with this card alone, so it definitely can add up on the damage. I mean, one of these alone can cut your opponent's life points in half, but you want to deal at least 2000. Because let's say your opponent has 5 cards, this will deal 1000, so your opponent's going to have 10 cards in order for you to deal 2000. So take that to account. Ceasefire. In total, this combines your monsters and your opponent's effect monsters, so you just need 4 monsters to have effects on the field. Activate this, deal at least 2000. But let's say you have 5 monsters on your side field that have effects, and your opponent has 5 monsters that have effects. This can deal 5000 by itself, and there's 2 of them in the deck, so if you have 2 of these at the same time, activate both, you can deal 10,000 a single turn. So that's useful. But you could just deal 5,000. Your opponent has 5 like pendulum monsters, right? They all have effects. You activate these 2, and right there you can deal them 5,000 damage alone. So a lot of damage can be dealt. I wish the Ojama tokens would count for ceasefire. It doesn't count for ceasefire, but it does count for just desserts, and if I'm right, secret barrel. So obviously, Ojama trio is useful for limiting your opponent to how many monsters he can have on side of field, so that hurts, pendulum decks roughly. These tokens can't be tributed for tribute summons, so you don't have to worry about giving monarchs, any tribute fodder or anything like that. They obviously they can sync with these tokens, but they can't tribute them. They have 0 attack. They have 1000 defense, but they have a 0 attack, so you don't have to worry about, getting OTK'd by Ojama trio tokens, right? It's just a useful card because of the fact that you can control your opponent's field and limit them to what they have on their side field. Plus, it works with just desserts, so you can, get that 2000 per just desserts strategy you want to get going, right? Swords Revealing Light for 3 turns. Your opponent can't attack you, so it doesn't matter if they summon a whole bunch of monsters. If they can't attack, it relatively don't matter. Localized Tornado. This is where it causes this deck to go infinite. This is an infinite chain burn. Right, so Localized Tornado will help you recycle everything in your graveyard back into your deck. I've been experimenting with a couple different things, so this deck might get tweaked up some more later. I was playing with Jar of Avarice in the deck. It was good, it was fun, but Jar of Avarice can't put back into the deck a Jar of Avarice, so can't get that infiniteness. And sometimes I just need to put more than 5 cards at a time. So to each their own. But I like Localized Tornado because there's no specific restriction. For example, a Localized Tornado does say put all cards in your hands and graveyard to the deck, but you don't have to have anything in your hand or in your graveyard to activate this card. Obviously, you want to set everything in your hand. You want to play as many cards from your hand as possible before and then play all your cards to deal damage and whatnot, and then use Localized Tornado, put it all back in the deck, because obviously you're gonna draw them again later with certain draw cards. Obviously, the draw card you want to combo with is Balance of Judgment, so that Balance of Judgment will pretty much guarantee you have nothing in your hand, especially if you have some cards in your hands that you don't need or they're useless at the current time, and you have no problem putting them back in the deck. You can put them back in the deck along with whatever's in the graveyard with Localized Tornado. Put it back in the deck, and now all you have is maybe a Marshmallow and Balance of Judgment. Activate Balance of Judgment, and just if your opponent has a lot of cards on the side, now you'll draw a lot of cards, and hopefully you'll draw your Swift Scarecrows, your Battle Faders and whatnot. Localized Tornado, of course, can put back your Localized Tornado, so if you already have one in the graveyard, you can put it back into your deck. with using the effect of one of them, and you can, you know, just keep it infinitely going. The magic cylinder, of course, it negates attack, plus it deals your opponent damage. If typically your opponent's monsters have 2,000 plus attack, so if your opponent attacks you with 2,000, magic cylinder will guarantee to deal at least 2,000 damage. If your opponent has a 3,000 or 4,000 attack, or even better, you know, they're just killing themselves literally. Hippo Carnival. Like for example, Hippo Carnival in swords obviously is for defense purposes, but you can take them out. Like if you want a side deck, you can side them out, or just take them out completely and then put in like some twisters, you know, twin twisters, some MSTs, you know, in case you want to have a main deck solution for roll the creep, for example. But unless you're in that situation, it's not that big of a deal. These cards are obviously relatively useful. Hippo Carnival, of course, makes 3 Hippo tokens. Scapegoats does make more tokens than Hippo Carnival. But the thing I like about Hippo Carnival is the fact that the turn I use Hippo Carnival, I can still summon a monster. You know what I mean? So let's say I play Hippo Carnival, I make 3 tokens, right? Then I set, you know, a whole bunch of back row, have, you know, 5 traps, and then I summon a card D. You know what I mean? I could do all that in the same turn. I can't scapegoats and then card D. So that's what I like about the Hippo Carnival, is that I can have, you know, monsters on the field, especially if I'm going to go for a card D play. I want to have, you know, since card D is not going to be on the field, nor do I want it to be on the field, I need something to block, right? So Hippo tokens, set back row, card D, get my pluses, and keep playing my game. You don't really need an extra deck, of course, but it doesn't hurt to have it. It's better to have an extra deck and not need it than to need it and not have it, because the ability to take 2 marshmallows and turn to an acid golem is useful, because, you know, you can attack your opponent with acid golem and deal some damage, especially if they have like skill drain or something. But having a nice little 3,000 beater comes in handy. Nightmare Shark is useful because you can detach a material and attack directly for 2,000, so you can go for game with that. We have a Super Quantum Mecha Beast Grand Pulse. It has a nice 2000 defense plus 1800 attack. It's pretty decent, and has the ability we can detach a material to destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. This is good for getting rid of, you know, a card in your opponent's pendulum zone or back row, especially if what they have is like a roll of the Cree or something. You can use 2 marsh buttons to make this, and then detach, and then pop the roll of the Cree. Now all your traps are alive again. So obviously that's a very good thing to have in the deck. Fortune Tune, really good. Help you recycle marshmallows, especially if you set your marshmallows, they flip over, they deal 1,000. Then you set it on marshmallow, gets attacked, flips over, deals 1,000. Then you can overlay the 2 and make Fortune Tune. And Fortune Tune, if it would be destroyed by battle card effect, you get detachment material. Every time it's your turn, you gain 500. And life gaining is useful. You know, you want to gain life. It helps you live longer. Also, whenever it goes from the field to the graveyard, it'll let you recycle 2 level 3 monsters in your graveyard back into your deck, and he goes back into your extra deck, so you can infinitely use them. And of course, you know, being able to recycle your marshmallows are useful. Zen Main. If you need the ability, you know, to defend, you know, to have a monster that can survive being destroyed by card effect or by battle, and he has a pretty decent 2100 defense, but also want the ability to pop your opponent's cards, back row monsters, that kind of stuff. Anything that's problematic, wind up Zen Main is good for that. Leviar, the Sea Dragon is good for any of your remove from play cards. monsters that are level 4 or lower, or grab one of your opponent's level 4 or lower monsters and use it against them. But you might typically use this to bring back like a battle fader, that we could recycle battle fader with localized tornado. Slacker magician is one way I like to make use of battle fader, because I use battle fader, summon, to defend myself, and then use a swift or another battle fader, overlay the two, make a slacker magician, install with that. And if she gets defeated, that's alright. Battle fader will go to graveyard, which means I could localize tornado and put it back in the deck, and then hopefully draw it through a balance of judgment, reckless greeter, card D or something, and then reuse it, and keep the fun going. Of course, if any of your extra deck monsters go to graveyard, localized tornado will put it back in your extra deck, so that's always good. So keeps everything infinite, so you pretty much won't run out of resources as long as you can recycle all your draw cards, use your draw cards to draw, and then you recycle your draw, you draw, you can recycle your draw. You get the idea. Gachi 1800 defense with 2 materials. It's a 2200 defense, and it increases defense and attack of all your monsters, and if it will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach a material instead. So it's in case you run into a scenario where like your card these keeps getting Phoenix Chain or something, you can just overlay the 2 of them and make Gachi. You can use Herald of Pure Light, especially if you get in a scenario where it's like you tried card D but they kept getting negated. You can overlay the 2, make Herald of Pure Light, detach a material from Pure Light to add a monster from your graveyard to your hand, then put a card from your hand back into your deck. So you can put something you don't need, like you can add obviously card D back from the graveyard to your hand, and put like maybe an extra localized tornado from your hand back into the deck, and continue playing the game, right? And that's the end of the deck profile.